Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. It's time now for our weekly Patriots of Act 746 segment, where we're going to talk about Arkansas gun laws and your Second Amendment rights, your Arkansas constitutional rights as well. Welcome back to the program. Mr. Dan Borum is back with us. Dan, good to have you back, sir.
Hey, thanks a lot, Paul.
I just want
looking forward to coming back on today.
Absolutely. I just want to say I got great feedback on our interview last week, and it really took an organic turn. You know, it was just conversational. Good conversation. You were talking about, you know, getting involved and your story, and I just want to say it was a pleasure to do the interview. But I know everybody else, you know, kind of just felt the same way, that you really you come across very genuine.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that, and I do appreciate the feedback that received from a lot of your listeners. It's very encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. But I wanted to try to, talk just a little bit about some stuff that's been going on Facebook. Our friend Gary on Facebook, he posted he posted a few things where we're talking about the definition of on you. He said this on Facebook. Joe, you can throw this up on there for our online audience. Think about it. Do you have your pocket knife, quote, on, end quote, you? What is he trying to say? What is he trying to convey, communicate when he says something like this?
Well, I know exactly what he's trying to convey or communicate to the readers out there to get people to think. No one really thinks about you having a pocket knife on you because the pocket knife is generally concealed, but a lot of people even have a pocket knife clipped to their front pocket, and it's open where it can be seen, but people don't seem to be threatened by a pocket knife. But the thing is, the same law applies to a handgun as well. To have a handgun on you is just as legal as having a pocket knife on you.
So elaborate on that. So which statute, which law are we talking about? Are we talking about specifically Act 746 here? Are we talking about people who are trying to say that on you doesn't mean the same thing when we're talking about a firearm versus a pocket knife? What's the rub here?
Well, let's just take a second and just read 573-120 in Arkansas law, what we refer to as Act 746. It says, carrying a weapon reads as follows. A person commits the offense of carrying a weapon if he or she possesses a handgun, knife, or club on or about his or her person in a vehicle occupied by him or her, or otherwise readily available to use for use with a purpose to attempt, and here's the key word, to attempt to unlawfully employ the handgun, knife, or club as a weapon against the person. So as long as a person is carrying their handgun, their knife, or their club with lawful intent, then they have every right to carry. And there's nothing in 746 that says anything about having to purchase a permit from the Arkansas State Police to do so.
And
so
that would cost... Go ahead.
The problem is it's so ridiculous to me, Paul, is, you know, our former governor and president had a problem with helping verbs, trying to define helping verbs. He had a real problem with that. And it seems that our AG and some of our representatives have a real problem defining a preposition. I'm kind of an old backwoods guy, but I have a little bit of education. I would be more than happy to give them a grammar lesson on prepositions and explain to them how they work. Mm-hmm. It's really not a hard thing.
Yeah.
Think about it. You think about these prepositions. about. It can be used as a preposition. It can be used adverbally. Synonyms of the preposition about are near, nearby, around, hereabout. Has the idea of not far. It's not far off. It's not far away.
Yeah.
The preposition on simply means physically in contact with, supported by a surface. So if I have a weapon on me, it's physically in contact with me. It's supported by a holster, a good holster. It's in physical contact with me. If I go into a restaurant in the wintertime and I have a jacket on, then that weapon is concealed. If I get warm and I take my jacket off and hang it over the back of the chair, then the weapon is open. And then, but in no way, form, or fashion does that break any laws in Arkansas. It is completely lawful to carry that handgun, knife, or club on or about your person as long as there is not an unlawful intent to use it against another person. It's very simple.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it really is. And, there was some decent work done, trying to prevent this last session, John Payton's Bill 486, trying to prevent the Arkansas State Police from changing the rules and that sort of thing. But then we have, this new enhanced carry. And, there are people – let me get your thoughts on this. I mean, do you think that it's an advancement of our gun rights to continue to put more levels and red tape to exercise those rights for a fee that we have to pay the government?
As far as I'm concerned, they could take the enhanced carry bill and just put it in the trash and burn it. It's worthless. It means nothing. There are representatives, I've been seeing certain representatives writing on Facebook, and blowing their horn just how, that it's a step forward in the right direction. But, friends, listen. Article 2, Section 5 of the Arkansas State Constitution says the citizens of this state shall have the right to bear arms for their common defense. Then we have Act 746 that doesn't necessarily, it didn't just jump in and all of a sudden make Arkansas the constitutional carry state, but actually it confirmed what we already have, but that people do not recognize. The thing is, if people are told a lie for a certain amount of time, people then begin believing the lie. And that's what's happened in our state over the course of all of these years. We've just believed that that's the status quo, that's the way it is, and that's what we have to do. But then when we start researching for ourselves and digging into these things, we realize that we've been taken. Mm-hmm. And bottom line, it's for nothing else than the almighty dollar. Just follow the money, and you'll follow the corruptness in this state. Yeah,
you're exactly right. We're talking with Dan Borum from the Patriots of Act 746. Now, Dan, you're a little bit older than I am, and I wasn't following, concealed carry laws, back when they, first originated. But you say something about, if you repeat a lie long enough. Do you remember what the atmosphere was like when we first started this concealed carry licensing, pay the government a fee type stuff? It's almost like, I mean, were there a bunch of people who were getting arrested at the time or something? I mean, I don't know if I don't expect you to know that, but I'm just trying to speculate here. Were there a lot of people being arrested at the time for possession of weapons and concealed? And so then they're like, hey, that's a problem. And so now let's create a license and let's regulate it. Something tells me that wasn't the case. Something tells me this was an effort to address a problem that really wasn't, that didn't really exist at the time. What are your thoughts?
The problem did not exist. In fact, I'll just use myself for an example, Paul. I was oblivious to these things. As a teenage boy driving, I carried my dad's handguns, and he had little .22 revolvers, Rugers. I had my own when I was about I think I was around 19 years old. I bought my first .22 revolver, and I carried them with me. I carried them with me in White Rock Wildlife Management area. Just when I was up there just goofing around, driving around, I had no idea that I was supposedly breaking somebody's law. I just always believed that I could carry a gun with me. I used to always keep an old double-barrel 20-gauge in the front seat with me, loaded. And it went with me just about everywhere. And then I'd slide it under the seat if I was going to get out and lock my doors. There was not a problem. Here's the whole reason that concealed carry came to be in the state of Arkansas is because they needed a cash cow to help fund the Arkansas State Police, and they dreamed it up through a concealed carry program. And through that program, I don't have the exact number, but I know that the Arkansas State Police annually was bringing in over $2 million annually into the Arkansas State Police. Off the back of the people of Arkansas who already had that right, not because it was written in our Constitution, but by the very fact that they were born and they breathe, they have the right to defend themselves.
Yeah. So it's fascinating. So what you're saying is true. People already had the right to carry, and then the government comes in and says, no, we're going to license it, and people automatically assume, well, okay, it's illegal if you don't have the license, right?
That's exactly right. It wasn't until, really wasn't until that I got a smartphone, and then I finally caved in and decided I would get on the Facebook, because I enjoyed seeing other people's hunting pictures and things of that nature, fishing pictures, and then I started looking at all of these advertisements for get your concealed carry license, and I thought, boy, maybe the wife and I ought to get that so we can conceal carry. I guess you're not supposed to have a handgun on you if you go out into the public or into a restaurant unless you have one of these permission slips, these permits. So we went through a class, we paid the money, paid for the fingerprints, did all of the, and I had no idea that money went to the Arkansas State Police. I just thought it went to the government somewhere in our state. But it wasn't until Gary Epperson got a hold of me, and he and others in this group started educating me, and then it spurred me to start educating myself. And when I started educating myself, it's like my ears turned red because I knew I had been taken. And that's why I am so adamant about getting this message out to others who were like me, who were oblivious to what the law really is. And I'm going to tell you, Paul, as a pastor, I believe what the Word of God says, that I am supposed to submit to authority over me. Okay, looking at the context of what the Lord told us in the Word of God, being underneath the Roman Empire at that time, those Jews, I'm not underneath the Roman Empire. I am underneath the Constitution of the United States of America. Therefore, it is my duty, not only as a citizen, but it is my duty as a Christian to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America and to fight against the lawbreakers who are legislating on the outside of the Constitution. Therefore, I fight against them.
I think that's exactly right. I mean, I feel the same way about our right to vote. You know what I mean? I mean that's that's being a good citizen, and that's submitting. Absolutely. It's great, when you look at the Constitution as it is, it's to protect your freedom, and so submitting to the Constitution, in the biblical sense, like you're referring to, is actually. It's really not that big of a deal, or it shouldn't be, because the government's not supposed to take our rights away. The government's not supposed to sell our rights back to us, and yet that's exactly what's going on.
Exactly, Paul. I wish people could get that in their head, especially in the Christian realm, because everyone is so afraid. I even heard a representative preaching at one time trying to push down our throats that how we're supposed to submit to whatever they legislate. That's wrong, because you see, the Constitution was not written to keep us at bay. The Constitution was written to keep the government at bay. We, the people, we are the government, and they are our representatives. We're not a democracy. We are a republic. We are represented with, we have representation, and we want our representation to go and represent us within the boundaries of the Constitution. That's what we're fighting for.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Hey, speaking of being armed, when we were here last week, and we started, we were mentioning carrying in church. You know what I mean? Or, your congregation. You were mentioning your congregation, and I said, I know there's a lot of congregations out there doing this. And, we talked about it, and then there was a tragedy this weekend where we have this this man from Sudan who goes into a church in Tennessee and kills 7 people. I mean, I couldn't believe that we had discussed that very concept, and then it ended up happening a couple days later.
The sad thing about that, when you was reading the article about that shooting in Tennessee at that Church of Christ assembly, the man ran back out to his car to get his weapon to try to defend himself and the people there. If he had had it on him, look at the odds in their favor of protecting life would have been so much greater.
Mm-hmm.
So I carry in church as a pastor. I carry. Sometimes it's covered. Sometimes it's not. No one is concerned. Oftentimes when I go up to the pulpit, I just take it off of my hip and I slide it right under the pulpit. Sometimes I take it out of the holster where I can just reach my hand down under the pulpit and get it if it was absolutely necessary. I hope it never happens in my life. I hope and I pray to God that I never, ever have to use lethal force on another human being.
Of course.
But I will to protect myself, my family, and people around me if absolutely necessary.
Dan Borum with the Patriots of Act 746. Another great interview. I appreciate it, sir, and thanks for giving us that perspective on, just the history of gun laws and kind of this psychological, the government really manipulating us psychologically to making us think that we don't have the right just because they create a licensing program to make everybody feel better about themselves. I really appreciate it, Dan.
Hey, Paul, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All righty. Be safe. We'll talk to you again soon. Folks, that wraps up our Patriots of Act 746 segment. They are trying to educate people about Arkansas gun rights, the laws, what it actually says, not maybe what, a prosecutor wishes it would say or an attorney general wishes it would say, what the law actually says. We've got to take a break. We'll be back, though, in just a moment.